Have you ever pondered whether the acknowledgement of Yahweh was unique to Israel, or if his essence, presence, and veneration permeated communities well before the nation of Israel came into being? Consider this. Prior to Moses' presence on Mount Sinai, before the Ten Commandments were etched into stone, and even before Jacob was renamed Israel, echoes of Yahweh resonated. Who were these ancient peoples familiar with his name? How did they commence worshipping the divine being now linked with Israel? And what does this signify about the divine overarching design for humanity, a design that transcends boundaries, nations, and temporal constraints? This is the enigma surrounding the reverence of Yahweh predating Israel, and the revelations herein may revolutionize your perception of the scriptures. Let's delve into the central question. Who exactly is Yahweh? Recall the profound episode in Exodus 3, where Moses encounters the burning bush, overwhelmed with uncertainty and queries. He poses a fundamental question: what is your name? The divine responds with an enduring declaration, "I am who I am," a statement of profound, eternal, and unwavering essence. Subsequently, in Exodus 3:15, the divine instructs Moses to convey to the Israelites that Yahweh, the divine being of their ancestors, including Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent him. It is essential to pause at this juncture. Did you discern that the designation, the divine being of your ancestors, suggests prior acquaintance with Yahweh? The term Yahweh, derived from Hebrew origins, encapsulates existence itself, signifying a divine entity that was, is, and perpetually will be. Intriguingly, the genesis of the designation Yahweh predates the burning bush encounter. Individuals were already familiar with it before Moses set foot on sacred ground. Consider the biblical timeline extending back to Genesis. The name Yahweh appears in Genesis 4:26, predating Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. At that time, people began to call on the name of Yahweh, Genesis 4:26. The term Lord in Hebrew is YHWH, Yahweh. This occurs during the era of Enosh, the grandson of Adam. Remarkably, merely generations post-creation, individuals were invoking the name of Yahweh. Therefore, the crucial inquiry is, how did they acquire knowledge of his name? Who instructed them to invoke Yahweh? Could the divine have been unveiling himself to those who genuinely sought him, even during those times? Examine Genesis 12:8, where Abraham, upon arrival in Canaan, erected an altar to Yahweh and invoked his name. Abraham was not merely encountering a novel deity. He was calling upon a recognized name, a name already ingrained in his familial heritage. This introduces a compelling possibility. Could the veneration of Yahweh have been transmitted, albeit through compromised generations? Could devoted individuals have preserved fidelity? Abraham's actions in Canaan suggest that the worship of Yahweh was not a new invention, but a continuation of a pre-existing tradition. This implies a connection to a deeper, more ancient understanding of the divine. The fact that Abraham felt compelled to build an altar and call upon Yahweh in a new land suggests a conscious effort to maintain and propagate this ancient faith. It speaks to the enduring power of tradition and the persistent human desire to connect with the divine, even amidst changing circumstances and geographical locations. This continuity of worship also raises questions about the nature of divine revelation. Was Yahweh's self-disclosure a gradual process, unfolding over centuries and millennia? Did different cultures and generations perceive and express their understanding of Yahweh in unique ways, while still recognizing the same fundamental divine reality? These questions are not easily answered, but they invite us to consider the complexity and richness of the biblical narrative and the ongoing human quest to understand the divine. Even as idolatry gained prominence worldwide, the unwavering devotion to God's name persisted, revealing a potent truth. God's presence and outreach were constant, with individuals responding to his call even before the existence of Israel. Let's explore this further by examining the enigmatic figure of Melchizedek, who appears unexpectedly in Genesis 14 and then vanishes. Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, serving as a priest of God Most High, as stated in Genesis 14:18. This is significant because Melchizedek ministered to Yahweh before Moses, before the establishment of law, and before the Levitical priesthood. Abraham acknowledged Melchizedek's role, and Melchizedek blessed Abram, proclaiming, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Genesis 14:19-20. Abram then presented him with a tenth of everything. The question arises, what were the origins of Melchizedek, and who instructed him about Yahweh, the Most High God? The Bible does not provide an answer. He was not related to Abraham, nor was he an Israelite, yet he was undoubtedly a genuine worshipper of Yahweh. Hebrews 7 adds another layer of mystery, describing Melchizedek as being without father or mother, without genealogy, and without a beginning or end to his life. Some scholars even propose that he was a Christ-like figure, a foreshadowing of Jesus himself. What is certain is that Melchizedek demonstrates that the worship of Yahweh was alive and active beyond Abraham's family. This signifies that God's work was not confined to Israel. He was already sowing seeds of truth throughout the world through priests, kings, and worshippers who recognized his name. Consider Jethro, the priest of Midian and Moses' father-in-law, as another example. Jethro, not an Israelite but a resident of Midian, is described in Exodus 3:1 as the priest of Midian. He was not a priest of a false deity. Jethro was a priest of the true God before Moses received the law. When Jethro visited Moses in the wilderness after the exodus from Egypt, he rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done for Israel. Jethro declared, "Blessed be the Lord Yahweh, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh. Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all gods." Exodus 18:9-11. He used the name Yahweh. Not only did he recognize Yahweh, but he also worshipped him and offered sacrifices. Exodus 18:12 states, "Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God." This is highly significant. Jethro, a non-Israelite priest, had a connection to Yahweh, and he was neither reprimanded nor corrected. Instead, he was welcomed into fellowship with the leaders of Israel. This illustrates that God was already working outside the borders of Israel, making himself known, being worshipped, and revealing himself to those who sought the truth in distant lands. It was not a matter of ethnicity or nationality, but of a heart seeking truth. Jethro serves as a powerful reminder of this. The narrative demonstrates that the influence of Yahweh extended beyond the borders of a single nation, revealing that the reverence for the one true God disseminated subtly, akin to light overcoming darkness. Further evidence supports this notion. Consider the possibility that one of the oldest texts within the Bible, potentially predating Moses, unveils profound truths about Yahweh, even though the central figure is not an Israelite. Enter Job, a man not of Israel, residing in the land of Uz, distant from Canaan. Nonetheless, the entire book revolves around his connection with God. Observe Job's manner of addressing him. "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1:21. The term Lord employed here is Yahweh, the sacred Hebrew designation for God. Throughout the book, Job alludes to God not merely as a remote deity, but as a personal, righteous, and sovereign Lord. He yearns to converse with him, present his case, and even proclaims in faith, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth." Job 19:25. This reveals that Job possessed a genuine and intimate acquaintance with God, not as a tribal deity or one among many, but as the living Redeemer. Furthermore, Job's friends, despite their imperfections, also spoke of God. They grappled with moral and spiritual dilemmas, mirroring our own struggles today. This indicates that the understanding of Yahweh as a righteous, personal creator was not confined to Israel. It was acknowledged, debated, and worshipped by individuals across the ancient world. This reality is not surprising, considering that God created all people, not solely one nation. Romans 1:19-20 reinforces this truth, stating that what can be known about God is evident to them, for his invisible attributes have been plainly perceived since the world's creation. The imprints of Yahweh are ubiquitous. Whether examining Job, Melchizedek, Jethro, or Abraham, we discern a consistent pattern. God was unveiling himself, and individuals were responding. Now let us consider its relevance to our lives today, focusing on a figure who challenges conventional expectations, Balaam. He stands as one of the most enigmatic characters in the Bible, a man not of Israel, with questionable motives, yet capable of directly receiving communication from Yahweh. Consider the passage. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Numbers 22.9. This indicates that God engaged with Balaam not through a dream or vague impression, but through direct conversation, akin to his interactions with Abraham, Moses, and the prophets. Balaam replies in verse 13, "Go back to your own land, for the Lord Yahweh has refused to let me go with you." Numbers 22:13. Remarkably, Balaam, a non-Israelite residing in the region of Pethor near the Euphrates, utilizes the covenant name of God, Yahweh. He doesn't employ a generic term for a god or Elohim, but specifically uses YHWH, the personal sacred name revealed to Moses at the burning bush. This raises pertinent questions. How did Balaam come to recognize Yahweh's voice? How did he learn to discern it so distinctly that he heeded his command, at least initially? Furthermore, why would Yahweh choose to communicate with someone outside of his covenant people? The answers to these inquiries are both perplexing and enlightening, suggesting that the revelation of God's presence and will transcends national and ethnic boundaries, extending to those who seek him regardless of their origin or background. The story underscores the universality of God's reach and the potential for individuals from diverse backgrounds to experience his divine communication. Even though Balaam is ultimately shown to be consumed by greed, pride, and spiritual compromise, as highlighted in 2 Peter 2:15 and Revelation 2:14, his initial role reveals a significant truth. God was revealing himself far beyond the boundaries of Israel. His name, his voice, and his power were known even to Gentile prophets. It's crucial to recognize that while Balaam wasn't righteous, he possessed spiritual awareness, and God chose to communicate with him. Furthermore, when Balaam is commissioned by King Balak to curse Israel, God transforms his intended curses into blessings. As stated in Numbers 23.8, "How can I curse those whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce those whom the Lord has not denounced?" Balaam ends up delivering some of the most beautiful prophecies concerning Israel's future, encompassing a messianic vision. "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel." Numbers 24:17. This flawed foreign prophet becomes an instrument to proclaim a vision of Jesus, the coming king. It's a complex and intricate situation, yet it reveals a profound truth. Yahweh's voice isn't restricted by location, lineage, or human schemes. Even when individuals attempt to manipulate God for their own benefit, his purposes prevail. Balaam's narrative serves as a reminder that God has always had a global perspective. He was making himself known long before Israel became a nation, and his revelation continues even now. The crucial question is, are we receptive to hearing him? Having explored these aspects, let's address the fundamental question: why does this matter? Why is it important to acknowledge that Yahweh was worshipped before the existence of Israel, and that his name was familiar to figures such as Job, Melchizedek, Jethro, and Balaam? The reason lies in the reminder that God's heart has always encompassed the entire world, not just a single tribe, family, or nation. From the very outset, Yahweh was revealing himself to anyone who sought him. As Psalm 113:3 states, "From the rising of the sun to the place where it sets, the name of the Lord is to be praised." He was working through humble hearts in obscure lands, communicating with those outside the spotlight, and drawing people to himself even before a covenant was inscribed on stone. This signifies that God's narrative is grander than we often perceive, and you indeed are a part of that story. Perhaps you've always believed that God only worked through certain individuals, or you felt like an outsider, as if you lacked the appropriate background or knowledge of traditions. However, the truth is that God sees you. He has been reaching out to you long before you reached out to him. Just as he spoke to Job, walked with Enoch, and called Abraham from a pagan land, he is calling you today. The beauty of the gospel lies in the fact that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Romans 10:13. That name is Yahweh, and in the New Testament, that name is revealed to us in his Son, Yeshua, Jesus, whose name signifies, "I, Yahweh, saves." Therefore, how will you respond to this revelation? Will you seek him even if you find yourself outside conventional boundaries? Will you listen for his voice, as so many did before Israel even existed? Will you respond to the God who has been reaching across centuries and cultures to connect with you? If this message has resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. What aspect surprised you the most? What questions do you still have? We are eager to hear your perspectives. Let's embark on this path together. And please remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this message with anyone who needs to be reminded that divine affection extends beyond our comprehension. We appreciate you joining us today as we uncovered a frequently neglected biblical truth: the enigma of Yahweh's veneration predating Israel. Always keep in mind that Yahweh's narrative didn't commence with Israel, nor does it conclude with you. It progresses through each soul that welcomes him. Until our next meeting, maintain your inquisitiveness, remain steadfast in your faith, and stay grounded in veracity.